It's such a pleasure for us to have Sabeer join us on the JAANA Speaker Series on the JAANA Connect podcast. Personally, for me and for many of my colleagues in the JAANA Working Committee, who not so long ago were sitting in classrooms and running about in the school building with Sabeer's name on it. So it says Sabeer Bhatia block. So thank you so much, Sabeer, for joining us today. Sabeer, I think you're muted, so can we have Sabeer unmute?
Okay. No, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here this morning.
Right. So Sabeer, I want to start by, asking you to, walk us through your journey from Bangalore to becoming a successful entrepreneur in Silicon Valley and a household name all across India and the rest of the world. So tell us how you did it.
So from Bangalore, after my 12th grade PUC, I went to BITS Pilani. And I had applied to a whole bunch of US universities, and I got admitted in 2 or 3 of them, but none of them had given me any financial aid. So when I went to Pilani, I decided I'll apply as a transfer, a student as well. But I wanted to restrict it to just 2 or 3 universities. So I just applied to MIT and Caltech the first year. MIT wrote back saying that they do not accept transfer students to the electrical engineering and computer science program. And Caltech unfortunately sent me the wrong application form. They thought I was a graduate student.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I had to write back to them and say that, I'm an undergrad student. So I kind of gave up the chance of joining as a transfer student, and I was continuing my studies at BITS Pilani, and lo and behold, the following year, Caltech sent me an application that was for undergraduate transfers, and they said because we made a mistake last year, we will waive the application fee, so which was about $40 or something. But that was pretty cool. I'm like, hey, I can apply for free. They just said you have to take a transfer exam in 3 areas: physics, chemistry, and mathematics. And you have to, do this. And if that's all you'll have to do. So you've got to find a professor at BITS Pilani who will administer this to you. And so I took these 3 exams. They were 3 hours each. The math was so difficult, impossible for me to I couldn't even finish it. I finished probably only 70% of it. And I thought there's no way I'm going to get into Caltech. That math exam I studied a lot for these 3. The physics and chemistry, I thought I did reasonably well. The math was just out of this world. And it really tested some of the core concepts of mathematics. And luckily, I loved math, but I just couldn't finish all of it. And it was so damn difficult. I gave up on the idea of, I said, I'll try to come to the US after I finish my undergrad studies. That summer, I was doing a research internship at Bhabha Atomic Research Center. And I got an admission letter from Caltech giving me almost full scholarship to come and study. So I'm like, this is unbelievable. How the hell did this happen? That math exam was so difficult. I don't know, must be a mistake, but hey, what if they're giving it to me? Might as well go. And this is Caltech. This is not, any other university. So I came to Caltech in 1988. And I remember my orientation, there was a professor there, Professor Ricardo Gomez, kind of a crazy physics professor, almost like he could have gotten the Nobel laureate if he wasn't so eccentric, a Nobel Prize if he wasn't so eccentric. He called me up and he says, "Are you Sabeer Bhatia?" I said, "Yeah." He says, do you know why you're here? I said, no, I don't know why I'm here. I mean, I did all these exams and that's why I'm here. He says, he showed me my paper and he says, you're the only one in the world who passed the math exam. And your score is
Wow.
62. The next highest was a 42. So that's why we've given you full scholarship to come and study here. I'm like,
Wow.
unbelievable. Felt really lucky. And Caltech is a wonderful institution. Finished there in 1991, 3 years after, um, and luckily got into Stanford for my master's. I was there for a year, and at Stanford is when I was, inspired. At Caltech, you want to become, you want to do a PhD, and you want to become either a professor or a researcher because that's what 90% of the people around do. It's a very academic, research-driven institution,
Right.
not so much an engineering institution. Uh, so I came to Stanford, luckily, and over there I took a course called Business for Electrical Engineers, and there we had different entrepreneurs come and talk about their stories and how they started these companies. And these were the likes of Vinod Khosla, Fred Gibbons. Steve Jobs came much later, but he didn't come for that class. But a whole bunch of other entrepreneurs, Sun Microsystems guy, Scott McNeely was there. And I'm like, all these people are human, just like you and me. And that's when I decided I didn't want to be continue the PhD track and become a researcher or whatever, but I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And
Right.
so after my master's, I joined Apple Computer,
Mhm.
and started thinking about entrepreneurship ideas. From Apple, I actually left and joined a small startup called Firepower Systems. Worked there for
Mhm.
a couple of years, and that company was going downhill. And that's when I started playing around on the internet, and had one idea, wrote a business plan for it, and recruited my co-founder Jack Smith to come and join me. Uh,
Mhm.
and that led to the creation of Hotmail, and it was such a phenomenal ride. I mean, it was just the whole thing from start to finish was under 2 years. Uh, and that was like the heady times of the internet, and we were being one of the first to do something and to create something that was used by, at that time when we sold 10 million subscribers in a year and a half,
Wow.
um, was phenomenal. So that is the condensed version of a little bit of the story of how I got to the US and how Hotmail really happened.
Right. And that brings me to a very interesting next question, right? A lot of people face this dilemma about, they work on a idea for several years. They have that in their minds. They work it and rework it on paper, but they hesitate to take that plunge, right? And you were a Caltech grad, a Stanford grad. I mean, the companies of the world would have thrown red carpet to welcome you. But you chose to, invest in your idea, invest your time and energy in your idea. What made you take that leap of faith?
I think a lot of it was instinct, and a lot of it is we, all of us, as we go through our journey in life, want to be known and remembered for something at the end of our lives, assuming,
Right.
Um, I just didn't have it in me to be a corporate guy. Nothing. I would have probably been a corporate guy had it not been for that one course I took at Stanford. There is something about being an entrepreneur, which means an entrepreneur looks at the world very differently than most other people. This is from experience I have learned. One, an entrepreneur is an eternal optimist. Two, an
Right.
entrepreneur sees the world as like a canvas where a lot of things have been done, but can I do something to make this world a better place? you know, the most entrepreneurs who start off becoming entrepreneurs because they want to become rich or famous actually don't make it. You know,
Right.
most entrepreneurs, many a times, I mean, all of the companies in Silicon Valley that are worth so much today and that I've seen that have become, you know, absolute stars at the top, whether it is Google or Uber or Airbnb or even Yahoo during my time, didn't start off with the idea of, oh, we'll become rich. So, hey, this is cool. If we do something like this, it will solve a problem, you know, even if it is for one or two people. And then then possibly it can solve a problem for millions of people and billions of people one day. Even Facebook, the same thing. You
Right.
know, so all these are, you know, exceptional, out of the box ideas, and they defy conventional, uh, you know, uh, I said conventional rules of accounting or of, you know, if I do this, so much money is invested, so much will be returned. Now, those are all financial stuff. You know, you got to, what are you solving? What is so hard? And if it is hard for lots of people for you to do, I'll take the example of Stripe. You know, these guys said just to get set up an online, you know, payment collection system, it's so complicated. Why is it so complicated? Why don't we make it simple for everybody else? I mean, those are the entrepreneurs, always the successful ones, always think of solving a good problem. Then, of course, the question is taking the plunge. Uh, and that also emanates from, I think, one's background and thinking. And, you know, you give up kind of security. You go through
Right.
high and low points in entrepreneurship. And, you know, after many years, you may fail. But that's the price you pay. Think of it as you're trying to buy a lottery. Not everybody makes it, you know, but you know, you will be at the end of your life, you know, feel that you have shortchanged yourself if you don't take that plunge. So I think it is very individual, and those people who have that belief in themselves, you know, take that plunge, and not everybody does, obviously.
Right. Right. And I remember what my mentor Jimmy used to tell me. He said, "You miss 100% of the shot that you don't take." Right. So
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Francis. Right.
Yeah,
So
it's the
Francis,
same with
who from the sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
the same thing in other things in golf too. You can never make a birdie in golf if you leave your putt short. It means you've got to go for it. You've got to try to put the ball in the hole and at least hit it past the hole. Same thing. I mean, idea in reality in life as well. That if you
Right.
don't take that, you'll miss 100% of the shots that you don't make. Absolutely, completely
Right.
agree.
Right. So Francis Joseph from the batch of 2006 asked us that question, and I hope he's taking notes. So Francis, don't overthink the problem. Like, you know, make sure you pursue it. And so Sabeer, and you know, Josephites are lucky to have, you know, a lot of mentors who kind of help us navigate any new path that we take, right? And did you have any mentors when you started out in the venture world? And what's your advice for, you know, entrepreneurs or even aspiring entrepreneurs to seek that mentorship?
No, I didn't have any one individual as the mentor during at least the time that I did Hotmail. Uh, it was good that we had a great venture firm, and you know they guided us really well, and you know, and that's the importance of I think post Hotmail. I made a lot of mistakes, obviously, and post Hotmail, but you know, one of my mentors in more recent times actually. Secret mentor has been Jimmy himself, and you know, he's been a wonderful human being who's been guiding me in, you know, both personal and professional life as well. Although he may not know this,
Right.
but I learned a lot from him. Uh, but you know, it's very important. We are very lucky to be in Silicon Valley, where there is, a professional network of venture capitalists. I think most aspiring entrepreneurs should see them as being very positive. They're not sharks. They don't intend to take away majority of your company. Throw all those ideas out. They are just
Right.
professionally there to help you. Yes, it is very, very difficult to get VC money, but if you can take VC money from the very beginning, there is a path that is laid out. The VCs that come later on when you're raising larger sums of money will more easily invest in you when you already have like a professional VC investment early on. And that's why it's hard to get the
Right.
first 100, 200, 300K or whatever amount you are. But no matter how much of the company you give up, don't worry about it. No good VC will take more than 50% of your company. And
Right.
look at them as people who help you build your company. There are very few VCs, and those VCs are also dead, that try to put money in your company to try because they want to take a majority of your company, or they want to get rich off of the investment they've made. No. Most of them really have the mindset of helping you build your company. And at every stage of the way, whether it's 200-300K, you give up 20-30% of the company along the way. And if you go along with that mindset, you will be successful. So, seek professional help and professional investment from venture capitalists. That would be my advice to aspiring entrepreneurs.
Right. Right. Your partners become your mentors. That's great. That's great.
Yes.
So, Sabeer, if I may ask you, like, what's the single most important lesson you learned from your experience at Hotmail?
Okay, it's not just Hotmail, it's Hotmail and post Hotmail also.
Right.
There's not a single most important, but you've got to have the right people, the right team if you want to succeed. It's not just the idea. Idea is one part. It's belief in what you're doing, obviously, and there is a certain instinct that you have, that you feel that this idea will become. And many times your instincts can be wrong too. But then once you have the idea, you have to build a team where everyone also is joining you because they believe in the idea. If
Right.
people join you and you build a team, no entrepreneur can do things by himself. I mean, you've got to have a team of initially 3-4 people, then 10 or 15. You have to have people who believe in the idea as well, and are not doing it because they're just professionals at doing a professional job.
Right.
That belief, I don't know how to test it out, but it's very, very important. And one thing I've noticed in life is the economy, global issues throw a lot of challenges out at you. Like what happened with COVID-19 right now, or what happened with the 2008 meltdown, or whatever. The whole world is different.
Right.
And an entrepreneur has to also be ready to pivot from one to the other and make use of all of the learnings and apply it in different things. Uncertainty is part of entrepreneurship.
Right.
And one has to be prepared for it and say, oh my God, if entrepreneurs say, oh my God, COVID-19 happened, the world has come to a standstill, everything has crashed and burned, demand is zero, we can't do this. Yes, some ideas you cannot, but sometimes you have to take control and be able to navigate these challenges too. And I give great credit to at least one company that I read about just in the last couple of days, called Saunders. This is like an Airbnb for curated Airbnb, and COVID-19 happened and travel sector has crashed and burned. they switched over to say, okay, we'll do short and long term, rentals instead of doing, just stays for vacation. And they
Right.
got funded. Um, so entrepreneurs will be faced with huge challenges beyond their control. So nothing is set in stone. You cannot go by a playbook. You have to be always thinking and always innovating and coming up with the bigger goal, underlying driving force should be you are there to solve a problem. Sometimes you're solving a non-existent problem. It also occurs. You can
Yeah.
imagine the future. You can imagine the world with full of sensors, and the timing could be wrong. You could be just way ahead of your time. So timing also
Right.
plays an important role. But an entrepreneur has to be practical and be able to really rely on data, to measure what's really going on. And if data are telling you that you're not performing, you cannot be just married to an idea. You have to just walk away from it, shut, and either pivot or just
Right. Right.
close down your shop.
And right from your message, I think resilience is the key. Resilience includes, the ability to see another opportunity and pivot as well.
Yes. In fact, I will give you, one of the domain names that Jeff Bezos had reserved before he called it Amazon. His company Amazon was relentless. And look at
Okay.
them. Amazon is relentless. I mean,
That's
they're
true.
entering into every business and succeeding,
Right.
surprisingly. So you've got to have that kind of DNA in the company, if you want to become super successful.
Right. 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 And Sabeer, for my next question, I know you've answered this in many forums and many times, but by popular demand, can you walk us through your thoughts during the acquisition of Hotmail by Microsoft? What's the secret behind your resolve and the calm that kept you in the driver's seat? I know you were as old then as I am now, so I'm quite sure it must have been a lot of pressure, but walk us through it.
Yeah, no, that was quite an interesting negotiation. Uh, the initial offer was 140 million, and I was able to negotiate him up to, the number we sold at. But that was purely on instinct, and we didn't hire an investment banking firm to help us out either. I mean, I was doing all of the negotiation, and it was purely based on instinct that I know we were negotiating with the largest corporation, largest software company in the world. But I also knew that we were sitting on a tremendous growth engine. We didn't have the revenue growth, but we had subscriber growth. And something instinctively told me that, this would be worth a lot of money in the future. And it was just pure instinct. And sure enough, many years later, and now subsequently, whether it is Facebook acquisition of WhatsApp or the Instagram acquisition or anything, it's valuation of WeChat, or more recently TikTok. It's all value. Getting subscribers has value, and no matter in what form. User engagement does translate into dollars of revenue. May not be directly, but indirectly does. And but that at that time it was pure instinct that enabled me to negotiate for and stand out for a higher sum.
Wow. And I think that kind of ties in with your earlier message as well. Like when an entrepreneur starts something, you don't necessarily look at how much money you're going to make out of it, but how many people you're going to reach out to, right? So the more subscribers, the more value you generate for them. And in turn, your product or your idea becomes that much more valuable.
Yeah, you solve a problem. I'll give you another beautiful story about Google. When Google started, they had no idea how they were going to make money. But they just solved one problem, that of scaling a directory. There were 27 search engines at that time. All of them were directory based and were being built by hand. Some people had a whole bunch of overseas people in Australia building the search engine. Yahoo was doing it in right here in the valley in the US. Google said this is broken. The internet is continuing to grow at an exponential rate. There's no way you can catalog the world's websites if you do it this way. Here is a better algorithm and technology that enables you to bring up the most relevant results based on how many links are pointing to a site and how many links are pointing away from a site. Like a kind of a linear algebra problem of assigning weight to every website. That simple idea. For 6 years, everyone was using Google. Google, it's the best, it's the fastest, immediate. And then 6 years after, they realized that they could make money by actually selling those links. So they didn't start out knowing how they're going to make money. Today, they're $1 trillion company.
Right.
That's the beauty of technology, and especially technology in this space, in the internet, mobile, connected world, people space. That just a good idea that solves a problem for someone. One person, two persons, 10 people, one business, 10 businesses. The scale is massive. If it's a good one, everyone will jump to it in a year or 2 years' time. Or these days, earlier was 6 years. Now even that is condensed to only a couple of years. Look at TikTok. From 2018 to today, there are like 3 billion videos, 3 billion users. 3 billion. I mean, that's a massive number.
Right.
But that is the excitement. I mean, it's the excitement of being part of the journey. It's not only about making money. Everybody makes money.
Right.
All make money, whatever. But being part of something that, I don't know how to describe it. It has to come from within. You have to feel it. It's like, why do some people become great sportsmen? The chances of, there's only one person who becomes the best tennis player in the world. There are only 10 people in the whole world who reach the top 10.
Right.
But what is it in them? Something in them, a voice in them tells them, I think I have a shot at this. They don't know, but and that is a similar kind of feeling or thought process that an entrepreneur experiences.
That's fantastic. So this next question actually comes from some of your friends in the batch of '84, and they want to talk about accessibility, right? So the question is, would you agree that entrepreneurship and technology are still a distant dream for many of the people in the bottom of the social pyramid, right? And if you do agree, like, how can we change this? How can we make it more accessible?
It's a very good question. Entrepreneurship, I have defined only from what I know. At the end of the day, if you think of life as a journey where you meet people and you do things with people, think of life as that way. Then there is no set path. I mean, it's like, even if you're at the bottom of the pyramid, if you can do something that helps everyone else around in whatever form, and you structure it, oftentimes it's not for lack of just capital. Capital is available everywhere.
Right.
It's good ideas more than capital that are needed. And how do people know how USAA insurance company really got started? I'll tell you how it did. After World War II, these folks from the army and the military couldn't get life insurance. So somebody started, hey, let's just start a group amongst ourselves of 30, 40 people, or during the war or whatever, that we can insure each other and our families, so that even if we die, it doesn't matter, we'll be able to pay. Today, those are the roots or the genesis of that. So you can think of similar ideas even at the bottom of the pyramid. If people come up with an idea that can help each other and help
Right.
their sphere or their local community, that's a good idea. And that's, I think we've got to inspire them with in the ability that they can start with simple ideas, and that can eventually grow to becoming big ideas. At the end of the day, an entrepreneur is just thinking of solving problems and saying, can
Right.
I get enough resources? And it's usually ideas that have good pedigree and good basis that succeed over those that are overcapitalized or have too much capital. Capital is really not the problem in majority of the cases.
Right. 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 And also nowadays when when internet has made information available to everybody, almost everybody in the world, right? So they're
Yeah.
able to look at local problems and see ideas that they can access on the internet and kind of marry the two and come up with solutions. And I think those are the kind of ideas and solutions that sustain, right? And can have the potential to scale as well.
Yeah, yeah. They don't have to be overly complicated. I mean, some
Right.
ideas are very, techno savvy, very technical, like somebody builds a new chip or a new computer and whatever. But that's a different kind of entrepreneurship. And, oftentimes many of those ideas don't succeed so easily because it's, uh, the market is really simple. The market wants something that doesn't exist, that solves a problem, or does the same thing for a lot cheaper, or is 3-4 times faster for the same price. It's as simple as that.
Right.
And these simple questions you have to answer through instinct, really. Do you instinctively believe this is going to take off or not? And sometimes your instincts are wrong too. I'm not saying instincts are always right. I got really lucky. I mean, I'll give you another thing about, somebody asked me this question, in soon after Hotmail was, a CNN reporter actually. So he says, are you great or are you lucky? And I'll be honest with all of you, you're all fellow Josephites. For 10 years, I thought I was great. And in the last 10 years, I now know I was lucky. And I will also tell you, greatness lies in admitting that you got lucky.
Right.
So, but everybody has to take that chance. You asked that question earlier. If you don't take that chance, you will never know what you can be and what your potential is.
Right.
And this is true of everything in life. I'm not saying only about entrepreneurship. It's true about anything that you do. Your intentions have to be good and you have to put your best efforts towards it. And the rest may happen, may not happen. It's really left to, forces beyond your control. But you cannot control the forces beyond your control. You just have to give it your best effort and you have to make sure that your intentions are good. And
Right.
if you do that, those two simple things, I think most of the times, you will come out being satisfied with the outcome.
Right. The essence is taking the chance at even becoming great or lucky, right? Taking a chance at that.
Yeah.
So Sabeer, I know a lot of people on the call and even otherwise would like to hear your thoughts about India, because I know that, despite a lot of the challenges of, running a business in India, we all have our heartstrings tied to it. We want to see India doing well, lots of entrepreneurs coming out of there. We want to see ideas and businesses scale from there. What do you think is holding India back? Because we've been reading about, people saying that India is this juggernaut waiting to take off, but for some reason the plane seems to be stuck at the runway. What are your thoughts?
It's the mindset. India's biggest problem is the way 99% of Indians think. And there is a problem of a zero-sum game in the country. You know, they just cannot think. First of all, I mean, I've had extensive experience in India, and I will tell you, the idea of business in the United States, every company in the US is, how can we do good? And while doing good, how do we make money? I mean, it's, you satisfy your customer. The customer is always right. Or you create value. You begin with something. If you do certain things, you solve a problem, you create and enhance value, and everybody gets to share when you increase the pie. The problem with 99% of businessmen in India is business is about making money. How much can I get? Companies look at something and say, oh, you're doing this for us. It's not about partnering and we can grow. Ah, I keep 95%, you keep 5%. I mean, it's ridiculous. And that thought process has permeated all the way from the top to right to the bottom. Till India changes, its idea is thought process where they think they know it all. They think the only thing lacking in India is capital, and they think they can fool foreign companies to come there and invest large sums of money. I don't know where to start, but if the thought process were to change in the country where they accept the fact that they are not anywhere close to being a world power, they are, if anything, falling back in time in the scale of ease of doing business and all of the other things. But most importantly, they've got to change the mindset and say, we have to accept that we don't know a lot of things. So if foreign companies are coming here and helping us out, we should welcome them with open arms, as opposed to, oh, try to kill them because they're trying to come in here and trying to make money. It all comes down to the purpose of everybody in India, or all the businesses, is to make money. And that, to begin with, is the wrong idea, wrong thought process, and will not enable India to succeed and become, you know, what its true place in the world is. It will always be short of that potential. Every new government comes and does things. I don't know how to tell you how to change the mindset. You have to accept who you are first. And then you have to be thankful if there are people who are wanting to help you out. If you don't want to be helped, if you think you know it all, good luck. You know.
Right.
And that's why it's still a jugger. It's a plane always waiting to take off. It hasn't taken off,
Right.
and I don't think it'll take off in the next 20, 30 years unless they change the mindset.
Right, right. And I hope the younger generation is listening to this podcast and can kind of emulate the successful ways where more freer market economies are thinking about business. It's not so much about the money, but it's about creating value to your customers, and that inherently creates value for you.
Absolutely.
Right. So
solve a problem for someone, delight your customers. You are there to help people, help businesses, help companies. And while you're doing that and you're solving a problem, money will come. Don't worry. I know it's easy to say, but if your purpose in life and intent in life is just to make money, and at every step of the way, negotiate, over-negotiate. Indians are the best negotiators in the world. Indians are the best, most argumentative people in the world, but they are the worst at performing, at getting stuff done. And the first part is, the other part is, lying is part of our culture. How far away are you? If you ask a simple question to any Indian, he'll say, I'm 10 minutes away, and he'll show up an hour later. That's a lie. It may be a white lie, but if that becomes part of your culture, you can never move ahead. I mean, we still don't know how bad the COVID-19 problem in India is. Classic example. We don't know whether there are 30,000 new cases or 300,000. Your testing is wrong. The government is lying. Data is manipulated. Data is always right. or data are always right, I should say. And that's the one thing that has made America great, that this country is built on honesty, integrity, and truth. And we have lost that entire idea that truth always wins, whether it's in business, it's in social life, it's in your stature as a country. I mean, we've got to accept that first.
Right, right, right. And Sabir, for my next question, I want to kind of get your thoughts on, what are the next big technology trends that you see today, right? We've been hearing about some of the technologies in recent years, IoT, 5G, autonomous cars, AI, and we're at the brink of seeing some of them materialize. But what are your thoughts on these? And do you see any other technologies that are going to come to the fore in recent times in the future?
They're all big technology trends. They're all people who've written phenomenal papers about what they can do to human life, and what they will, whether the sensors will make it simpler for us, everything will be automated. By 2030, the whole world will be autonomous. All that is happening, but those are big picture visions. Unfortunately, they mean nothing for an entrepreneur. And I've had experience trying out different things and trying to build companies based on big visions. And ultimately, you've got to take that at the back of your mind and see how you solve one small problem using that. Using all these good trends of IoT, faster 5G connectivity, AI, and all these are phenomenal. But you've got to figure out how you can take the value of AI and distill it down to a simple problem that you solve, and how big is until you find those simple problems. And that's the hardest thing. I mean, I'll give you the example of people who do PhDs. The hardest thing to get a PhD is to ask the right questions and to find a problem to solve. And that is, in a nutshell, the purpose of entrepreneurship as well, to find the right problem to solve. So all these trends are great, but they have to come down to individual problems that entrepreneurs find to solve.
Right, right, right. In fact, that kind of brings me to very naturally to my next question. So, a lot of these companies have leveraged technology to solve individual problems, right? And some of them even came at a time when there was a big financial crisis in 2008, like Groupon, Uber, and Dropbox, and Venmo for payment transfers, and all of these companies did great. And even at a time when there was so much doomsday hearsay, right? And given that, do you think there are such companies that are going to be coming out of the crisis that we're in now due to the pandemic? Do you see some opportunities that lie ahead for entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a phenomenal opportunity for entrepreneurs. I mean, I see it that way because, where else have established brands, and when else will demand go to zero for established companies? So if you've got a better way of doing things that was being done by some established companies which had all the brand, this is the time to do it. This is absolutely the time to do it. And there are so many opportunities that will come about in helping businesses come back to life. There are 30 million small businesses in America, and they've all been affected with their demand going to zero because of COVID. There's an opportunity in helping them get back to life. There are 40 million Americans who are out of a job. They need to get back into the workforces. I mean, these are the kind of problems that people have to grapple with. And talking about you asked the earlier question of big trends in IoT. There are point solutions using IoT that you can solve, whether it's in security, personal safety, social distancing, that were not part of our vocabulary just 6 months ago. And these are going to become relevant questions. I'm kind of lucky to be on the board, with Jimmy on a company called Salutech, which has some of these solutions based on IoT. So, first of all, it's a great time right now for entrepreneurs to put on their thinking caps and start thinking of how they can solve some of the world's problems in a post-COVID world. Because the post-COVID world is very different from the pre-COVID world. Established ideas and ways of doing things that were around for even 100 years are going to change in the post-COVID world. And I don't have all the solutions, but obviously, if many of you are wanting to be entrepreneurs, should put on their thinking caps to see how they can, create value for the world. Once we come out of this lockdown pandemic.
Right, absolutely. So we're going to take a quick audience poll here because we know, when we ask people, what do you think is the most important factor in a startup success? Different people have different opinions, whether it's the idea, team, or technology or market, and all their answers are colored by their own experience. So if all the members on the call can click a quick vote, and then we'll get Sabeer to comment on it. And we'll get his idea on what he thinks is. Of course, everybody is kind of tempted to say different proportions of all of these matter a lot, but here we're going to give you only one choice.
So do we have results of the poll?
Yes, we will. We will have it. We'll have it in the next 5 seconds.
Oh, good. Okay.
Do you see it?
Yeah, 49% idea, 40%, and technology is 2%, and market is 10%. First of all are important. I think market is very important too. I don't think 10% is enough, does enough justice. Market has to be important. Market determines everything. 50% of what you do in success has to be the market. And then I would say idea is important, and team is extremely important as well. But the two they are like distinct from each other. First of all, between the idea and team and technology, I think you should put them in a separate bucket, because market ultimately dictates, which company succeeds or not. I mean, at the end of the day, we are judged for whether we like it or not by financial success. So you can have a great idea and great team and great technology, but if there is nobody who wants to buy it, nobody wants to do anything, then it goes to zero. So it's unfair to put all four of these in one bucket. I would say, you put market as separate, and then then give more importance to idea and team than technology. And I would say roughly 40% idea, 40% team, and 20% technology. And then market is a separate bucket, with 100% being the market, because market ultimately determines whether you're successful or not.
That is fantastic. I think that's a fantastic explanation of how to shape your idea and your team. And so for some of my final questions, Sabeer, is you interacted with several hundreds of entrepreneurs and several hundreds of ideas and you've seen them scale, and you've been part of many of these ideas scale to reach its intended users. What do you see are good practices that some successful entrepreneurs follow while creating and scaling these businesses? Like, do you see some telltale signs that, hey, you know what, I think this business is going to do well, not just because of the idea, but because of the way they go about it?
Yeah, no, very, very, very good question. One thing that you missed out in the last poll I just thought of is timing. Now, timing is very important. People underplay timing, but timing is extremely important. I have seen failed ideas in 1999, 2000 timeframe come back and become great ideas in 2004, 2005, and later. 4 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, phenomenal ideas. And that's primarily because in 1997, 98, 99, bandwidth was slow, not enough data pipes. Data pipes were not fat enough. The same ideas of voice over IP, or what we are doing right now, pure video conferencing, 10 years later, 20 years later, are like natural, So
Right.
That's very important. Always for entrepreneurs, don't get married to any one idea. If it is not working, reevaluate it, either change or wrap up and go home. People are your most important and most valuable asset. Treat them right. Make sure you bring out the best in them. And if they're not right, let them go. That part, the flip side also has to be, and this is purely instinct. Always keep measuring your performance. Set goals for yourself, both short term and longer term. If you miss those instinctively for yourselves, evaluate whether you're still going right or not. In a bigger company, there's always a good board of people who are giving you the right advice. That's why in smaller companies, startups, make sure you recruit a good a board of independent thinkers, not a board that will just be a bunch of yes men who will tell you, a few people are successful doing that, like Steve Jobs was. I mean, everybody was so scared of him because he would fire the board at will, or he would fire people at will. I mean, but he's a different animal completely. We're not all Steve Jobs, and none of us should aspire to be Steve Jobs either. But have a great board and people who give you the right advice and tell you to do the right or the wrong things. Test your idea out with family and friends, and constantly keep evaluating your performance. And be humble. Go in with tremendous humility that you don't have all of the answers, because nobody does. And entrepreneurship is as much about finding out answers to things that you do as it is about becoming successful, financially as well. Those are my few thoughts that I think about this subject.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I think that answers Thomas's question on what are the practices that you look forward to while evaluating an idea. And I think that kind of brings us to the end of the session. We are also running out of time. I'm quite sure, all the Josephites would love to hear a lot more from you, but due to paucity of time, we'll have to pause here. But the message I take from this session is like, entrepreneurship is neither a talent that's restricted to a gifted few, but it's also not a science formula that can be taught in a school, right? It's like a craft that you learn and get better at by diligently practicing. The philosophy of keeping your customers first, being transparent with your investors, collaborating with your partners, and leading with a clear vision, and taking time out to evaluate yourself and your team at every milestone that you set for yourself. And when you do all of this, is your effort truly done for future's sake? And that's when you're rewarded. And thank you so much, Sabeer, for spending time today to talk to us. It was a pleasure to have you on with us. And for people who might not have had the chance to listen to this show live, it's available on the JAANA Connect podcast. You can hit JAANA space Connect on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube. And you can look forward to all the exciting content that we bring for you from here. Thank you, and over to Thomas.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gary. It was truly a great opportunity for me and a great pleasure for me to be, with Josephites, and thank you for such a wonderful set of questions that you had prepared. I enjoyed this immensely. This is a subject which is, I live and breathe every day. So thank you again.
Thank you, Sabeer.